Hello everybody, it is your professor, Rocco, you boy, coming at you once again with another Age of Sigmar video. This is not the bat rep yet. My opponent had to reschedule, but we did have a whole bunch of viewer questions that came out. And I want to answer a few of them from the last video. I'm feeling like we can do pretty good here. Specifically, a line of sight and cover. In regards to what is it, how does this all work, how does it happen, and we thankfully have a decent rule book that now has things like, you know, check rule 17.1.1 for what cover is defined as, so we can just figure all that out. But I'd rather show you than just read a bunch of rules and have rules pop up on the thing, because that's what you're here for. Because if this was just helping you read, you wouldn't need me. You wouldn't need the video. You wouldn't need to listen to my voice. You wouldn't need to see what's going on here. So right now we have my wonderful Ideneth Deepkin beating up on my cities of Sigmar. It's elf on elf violence, people. But this is what we're going to use, and this is what I use as a teaching tool generally for newer players when I'm teaching Age of Sigmar. So let's start off with, I want to do cover. And we'll get into line of sight in a second. So this is a pool that my Deepkin are standing in because they're wet. So the thing is with cover, it is a unit counts as being in cover if they are wholly within a terrain feature or behind a terrain feature, like this palisade here, this wall, when they're being targeted by attacks. Alright? Like, if you could reach over the wall, you can hit them. If you have shooting attacks, like the Sisters of the Watch hitting in here, the units could benefit from cover. Now, there are a few caveats to this, but first off, cover, what it does for you is give you +1 to your save characteristic. Now, remember, you can have as many pluses to your saves and hit rolls and wound rolls as you want, but you only ever, at most, get a +1 net benefit. So what does that mean? I can save stack, right? Like, let's say my base save on this Tidecaster is a 4-up. The best it could ever be at my end result is a 3-up save. But I could have Mystic Shield, be in cover, have, say, the turtle buff. All that can still count to counteract high rend attacks, but the best I could ever be is a 3-up save. And also, you do not get the benefits of cover if you have 10 or more wounds and are not wholly within the terrain or wholly behind the feature. So let's just see what that is here. Got a 5-wound Tidecaster, very clearly in the pool. Cover, when she is targeted by attacks, like, say, by the Sisters of the Watch. This aspect of the storm has 12 wounds. It has too many wounds to benefit from being in cover. Also, it's really tall, so you can just see from everywhere where he is. This shark has been changed to have 8 wounds again, which is great, but as you can see, the base is not wholly within the pool, does not benefit from cover. If this shark were to shoot these Phoenix Guard, well, they are definitely behind this wall. They'll get +1 to their save. They could all out defense. They could have a 3-up save while ignoring Rend 1 from the Alapex's harpoons. That's great. If these Phoenix Guard, however, were targeted by these Namarti Reavers, who, as we can see, are just right on the flank and can just shoot into the unit, they would not benefit from cover. All right, and then while we're here, too, let's worry about some line of sight stuff. All right. So line of sight in Age of Sigmar is also from any part of the model that can shoot or attack, or if you're doing a spell, you need line of sight. If any part of this shark can see the unit it's trying to shoot, by getting down at base level here, like actually physically on the table, this is the thing people complain about TTS for, but in real life, you actually do this. You get down as high as your model is and see if you can see stuff. So like this shark can totally see all the Phoenix Guard. And from the front of my base, that's part of my model, I can see from my model these Reavers. They're friends, so we're not going to shoot them right now. But, you know, Namarti sometimes. No, I love my Namarti. I can't even make any jokes about it. I love them so much. Uh, that being said, the Sisters of the Watch have line of sight on all my Deepkin behind them. Because, again, this is just, you don't need to have your model facing a certain way. That's not Age of Sigmar. We treat it almost like it's a skirmish game in that respect. Whereas, like, old fantasy, you'd have facing, they wouldn't be able to, like, shoot or see the shit behind them. But we get down here, this Sister of the Watch cannot get a bead and see any of the Reavers back here, who vice versa cannot see anybody but these Phoenix Guard. So if they can't even see a little bit, they don't get it. Now let's say, right, move these Reavers up a little bit. So we'd have to physically get down model by model and be like, okay, does this Reaver have line of sight to them to see at least part of a sister's bow or something? And the answer is no. So what we do in the shooting phase is when we're deciding who we're attacking, how many attacks we're allocating, I would say out loud the Namarti Reavers here that could see the Sisters of the Watch, as long as they're in range. They have an 18-inch range. So this one can see, that one can see, that one can see, this one, yeah, can see, because you can see through your own dudes. So we're gonna get 5 of them that can shoot this model. This model's part of the unit, so they can be shot. And I'd say the other 5 that can very clearly see the Phoenix Guard will shoot over there. And I would do their attacks up. So 5 Reavers would get 10 attacks, because they're 2 attacks each. I'd say all out attack probably, because it affects the whole unit, to be +1 to hit. Now I'd spend my command point hitting on 2s. This will be the first volley will go into the Sisters. And the Phoenix Guard are just there. Now here's the thing, the Sisters are totally behind this terrain piece. I would give them cover for +1 to save. Wounding on 3s. Good roll. They'd have to make armor saves. +1 and -1 for Ren to save would be a 5 up again. Cool. 5 Sisters of the Watch got popped. That attack. And the other ones would go into these Phoenix Guard. And again, if the Shark were to go and target the Phoenix Guard, guess what? They're behind cover. They get +1 to their save. So I'd have 4 shots here. Hitting on 3s. Wounding on 3s. Be -1. Ren, so we're like, okay. How does cover work? So we're behind +1 for our save. These guys would all out defense when they were given the opportunity to. That would make them a 3-up armor save and then a 4-up ward because they're Phoenix Guard. So I would pass both my saves and this Shark would be very upset. And with spells, so the Tidecaster used to have a spell that targeted the nearest enemy you needed line of sight, and it was a whole thing. Or you didn't need line of sight, and it depended on what you were trying to do. But now, let's say this Tidecaster, magically it's a hero phase again, has line of sight on those Phoenix Guard, which are very scary, and these Sisters. Let's say I would like to try to, I don't know, put -1 to hit on them with my War Scroll spell and do D3 Mortal Wounds. Riptide. They're within 18 inches of me. I see them. They're not physically blocked from my view, and those halberds are pretty tall, so I could see them from a little bit away. I get to try. I rolled my 2 dice. Hopefully I get a 7. I did! And they have no one to unbind because we killed all their heroes because we're Deepkin. They would take D3 Mortal Wounds for 2 and be -1 to hit me. And then, for their ward save. Passed them both, so it didn't matter. But they're debuffed at least. And that's I know it's a lot, but that's generally how these line of sights and cover rules work. If we're going to get more into it, the Gloomtide Shipwreck can actually be defensible. And what does that mean is that certain terrain pieces, depending on their size, and also before the game when you talk it out with your opponent, what you actually want to do for the different rules, for scenery, you can actually put models inside of it, inside of the terrain feature, then use the terrain feature to count as your unit. You can issue commands functionally from a much larger area, and if someone's trying to attack your models inside the terrain feature, they're -1 to hit them, and you're +1 to your save. The downside is, if they have line of sight on the terrain feature, they can shoot your unit or fight your unit if they're in combat with it. So there's some give and take there. Now, the thing is with some of this, you're going to hear some people like, oh, if they fly, there's keywords and weird None of that matters for any of this. The keywords that actually would matter is if someone is ethereal, and that comes into contact with the rules when we're dealing with cover saves. Ethereal means that a unit cannot have its save modified positively or negatively. Ren doesn't affect it. Cover saves don't help it. But if a unit, say, has fly, they're not always in the air. If you physically cannot see the model, you can't shoot it. Some models are really tall, and you're going to be able to see them anyway. And then sometimes, for my spear, sometimes you'll get scenery where the angle is so good for you that these tall models can't be seen. So like these Sisters of the Watch have a very solid wall right here. They can't see the big bad guy from over there. No, if we're getting down at their level, they just see these lovely frescoes and reliefs carved into the wall. So in that case, my Eidolon can't be shot, even though he's huge. And this comes into a thing too with line of sight and scenery in Age of Sigmar versus fantasy, where you'd fight on an open field. And in Age of Sigmar, where you want different types of terrain in your games. You want a thing of woods. You want something to act like this pool where it just gives out a cover save. You want tall buildings that can block line of sight, or else shooting armies are just going to just rampage throughout your games, and you're not going to have anything you can do about it tactically because you just don't have anything to hide behind. You don't have anything to make people move around it, to play around it. And yes, there are some units in the game that can shoot without line of sight, but that's not everybody. It's literally one unit. One unit in an army that's now dropped to a below 50% win rate in tournament play. People are finding ways to play around it, and part of it is actually playing with terrain. Like for me here, I would want a few big pieces of terrain. I'm just going to start pulling stuff out of here. I like a good 8 or so terrain pieces, a couple walls, maybe some pillars, a place where I can put my faction terrain, so I'm not screwing anyone out of their fun. But I like a good 8 or so pieces of terrain to be buildings and things. I like a couple pieces to be like rivers, maybe a bridge. And you can make that like a thematic part of your table at home or in a tournament. I've played in theme tables where it was like a western desert town or on the prairie or in a blizzard or it's a volcano fortress of doom. You can make really cool things with this. But if you don't, and then you run into a shooting army, all that's going to happen is you're going to get shot off the table and it's going to feel bad. Because there's nothing to block line of sight, which in Age of Sigmar we consider true line of sight. And then there's nothing to hide behind. There's nothing to give you bonuses to your saves, nothing to make you play better and give you a chance. especially if you're a melee army. And, I'm happy to answer these viewer questions about more stuff on cover, bonuses, and line of sight. And if you have more questions, feel free. We've got in the backlog, I'm going to be doing an episode apparently on Cruel Boys in the future. I'm looking forward to that. And our battle report might use the new Games Workshop hotfix where there's the hunter armies and the prey and the big game hunting rules for bonus points for killing the scary units in the meta. And I like that they're trying something new. I don't know if it'll work how they intend, but I appreciate trying, you know? And my wife, as you know, plays Night Haunt, and she's excited. Um, my Stormcast army of Fulminators and Longstrikes is a little worried right now. And I know someone that does that with dragons too, when it's all reinforced, so they're a little skittish. I know my Gargant players are a little nervous. But, we just need to see what this change does to our community and what happens in these games and to play test them. And also, I want to play my Deepkin on the channel. I haven't actually done that yet, I don't think. And yeah, we'll have someone else play Stormcast for a change. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to class today. I hope this helps you understand cover saves and line of sight better in Age of Sigmar. And as I like to say at the end of all of our classes, class dismissed. Bye.